My name's Lori Forshee-Donnay. I'm the executive director of the Watermark Art Center, originally Bemidji Community Art Center. And I started with the organization in 2006. 2006. I've been with the organization almost 20 years. And when I started, it was still called the Bemidji Community Arts Council. I had sold my business and was looking for work, and this position was open, so I applied for it. I've always had an interest in art, so it was really appealing to me. And the idea of being around creatives and this kind of schedule that wasn't typical 9 to 5 sort of thing as well appealed to me as well. And we were located in the Carnegie Library building, and that's where the organization started as it appears in its current iteration. We are a visual arts organization with a physical space with galleries to show exhibits, provide programming. That started in around 81, 82 when two organizations merged. So one was from the 70s that was doing programming around the community, all kinds of arts programming, people that were community members, some of them were connected to the university. And so they were trying to bring more art to the community. And then in 1980, 81, another group wanted a physical space and negotiated to have the Carnegie Library building, it wasn't being used at the time, to be that physical space. So the Art Center has been in the Carnegie since it was in the Carnegie from 81, 82 up until we moved out. And that would have been around 2015 or so. How we became what we are now is a result of a capacity building grant that we were able to secure through Arts Midwest. And it was actually called Arts Lab. And it was a statewide program, 3-year program. And it really helped kind of retool the organization. We were growing at that point from when I started, and we were trying to figure out how do we serve the community. And so that capacity building grant really let us do a lot of internal stuff for the organization, for the leadership, to make us able to move forward. And I don't think if we would not have done the Arts Lab workshop, that 3-year program, I don't think we would have had the ability to then do a $3 million plus campaign to buy this property to have what we have now. And one of the things we found out, I always say it wasn't build it and they will come. It was build it because they're waiting to have it. The demand and the resource of artists is really, people are always surprised when they come to Bemidji or to the region. They're surprised at the amount of art that's in our communities. And it's here because there's a lot of artists here. Artists that have been here all their life, others that have relocated here. So we started talking about a new facility. We needed space. The city was talking about, they owned the Carnegie and they wanted to tear it down. And so they voted 3 times to tear it down. So we thought we better start looking. And the building across the street where we are now, so we're right across from our old home, was originally a grocery store, the first Lutheran grocery store. So it's the perfect building to do something like this. It had been chopped up into offices, but we were able to open that back up and create really large gallery spaces with high ceilings. The building was accessible. There was parking. In the end, all said and done, we have a half of a city block right across from the Carnegie and Library Park, and we can see Lake Bemidji right out our window. So that's pretty amazing. And we were thrilled to have something that really met our needs and what we were trying to do, what our community was asking us to do. We were doing surveys and things, and stay downtown. We wanted to be part of the downtown. That was important to us as well. So it's easy for people to access the building. And it's just kind of one of those things that when we started designing it, suddenly we didn't have any more room left. Things were coming up. The University Gallery, one of the early stages and one of the reasons we felt we needed a new building was that we weren't able to serve the Native American community. We would do occasional group shows because in the Carnegie we had one big gallery space and then a little side one. And then there was another space that was sometimes a shop and sometimes a storage, and then it became a shop again. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for individuals to do exhibits at all, because there's one space to deal with pretty much. And then wanting to have exhibits that were there for more than 1 month. It was hard to get into that facility anyway, and then to have the exhibit short like that just made it really difficult for people to access it. So we were talking about this, but one of the things that we really wanted to do to make part of this larger facility is to have a Native American gallery dedicated 365 days a year. We knew the content was there, that part of our community was not represented equally, and so that was important to us. And when we first started talking about it, we did some focus groups with some of the artists that we knew through Region 2. Actually, Region 2 participated in it at the time, and just kind of wanted feedback as to what were they looking for, what would they want a space like that to be. And it was really interesting that they really kind of opened my mind to as what it could be. It is still a traditional gallery space in that we, find exhibits and we display them. But as a result of these conversations, what we look at and how we present it is, I think, a lot different. And the programming that has come along with it is a lot different. And it kind of goes back to what exactly they were talking about in the beginning. So that was really important. And then the second gallery that is kind of unique to the Watermark is the BSU gallery. And they, in this whole time when we were doing capacity building, changes were happening at the university. The arts were being cut dramatically. And the university was a very active community in the arts. There was a lot of student groups. First Friday, they were coming out. Half of our shows were student work around town. You'd have a First Friday, there'd be 15 venues, and maybe 5 of them, it would be actually either university faculty or students. And so that hit us pretty hard. And at one point, one of the VP provost at the time, asked about our project. And I said, well, we are interested, you've cut your fine arts programming. We're interested in having the fine arts in here. So if you're interested in that, well, let's talk. Because we knew about the ceramics collection, because we work with that on an ongoing basis. And because of It's Only Clay national show. And they also have a print collection. So now we have a space that the university rents this space. They secured an endowment from a donor, and they pay rent for the space, but they also curate these 2 collections to create exhibits. At one point they were 4 a year. Right now we're doing about 2 a year, just because of more cuts and changes on campus. But it is a stunning collection, and it's a great way for the community to see it. Otherwise, it was pretty much on campus. You might see it displayed in offices or in hallway galleries, or in, when I was taking classes, you'd have access to it. It's a teaching collection. So there's significant museum quality work in there. It's the Margaret Harlow and William Clevin collections that they donated, and the university was still adding to those collections. So there's hundreds of pieces in each collection, and it's pretty amazing. They had a great eye, both of those women did, for art, and started collecting in probably the 50s, 60s, maybe before that. And they left those legacies with the university. So we get to present Indigenous work, we get to present work from around the world that is at a museum quality level. And we also have 2 other galleries that allow us to work with a lot of regional artists, national artists, and it's exciting to have the big space, the Call Gallery, because that allows us to have really big pieces in it as well.
So was It's Only Clay started when you guys moved into this building, or was it already a thing during the...
It's already a thing, and I think we're on our 20th this year. I'd have to double check and look, but I think we're on the 20th this year. And every year we select a juror. I try to find someone who has an education background in some sense. Because it's nice to have, they'll go to the campus and do a workshop. We'll do a workshop here, or we'll go back to the university. We did a firing workshop when we don't have the ability to do that. But doing some sort of intensive with the artist who's the juror, a lot of our practicing artists want to have that opportunity to speak to them and work with them. So that's always a great boon to that, and then also letting the university come in and select pieces. So the artist whose work is selected for the collection, we don't take commission on that. It's what we call a purchase award. Plus we have money awards for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place. The program started, I would say, yeah, I think it was 2005 was the very first one. So I think we are on the 20th this year. So that's when it started. And I think we had a little hiccup around COVID, so we just did
Yeah.
we went and got work from past jurors and tried to do kind of something with that to have the show. But we're back to normal, and this year it's Nick DeVries, and he's actually, he's from the region. He lives in Brainerd currently. And he's an amazing potter, and he actually has pieces in the collection he's been purchased before. So it's kind of fun to be working with him.
That is really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
So when you were moving into this new building, what were some of the community feedbacks that you had gotten? You had mentioned that before.
I think more, again, access to Indigenous work,
Mhm.
and the fact that when we did those focus groups with the Native community and artists, they talked about being able to create this space that lets them share their culture. And I think with all of the exhibits that we have, the Art Center galleries are a safe place for people to have an interaction with content, culture, all of that, and community, and just be able to convene over that. And
Mhm.
it gives them a sense of community through that. And it's a great way to interact with the artists, to talk about where their work comes from, where their ideas come from. So a lot of it was looking for an opportunity for a larger presence as a retail store, a larger gallery presence, bigger galleries to accommodate more work, an accessible place, because
Yeah.
it was really difficult. And it's nice what they did. They rehabbed that. They saved the Carnegie. They did an addition that allows for accessibility through elevators and things like that. So it's wonderful. But we were constantly battling to hang. We were working around the architecture. And to be honest, half the people walked in, it said Carnegie Library on the top. And so people would give them directions to the library on Fifth Street. And it's the intersection of Fifth and Bemidji Avenue. So about half the people in early days were coming in and they saw that. I mean, it's a classic library building. Yep, where's the library? Is this the library? Nope.
It's a surprise walking in.
Right. So so the building, that building, it was a great home. It was certainly something that launched us. It housed Region 2 as well in the lower level. We had some artist studios down there too. But it was it was a historic building. It was hard to maintain.
Yeah.
And it wasn't being taken care of properly. It needed a lot of work. So I'm thrilled that we can see that beautiful building. It's there because the community, thought that that was important. That's why it's right there on the lake and right downtown. But being able to have this space and still enjoy that gorgeous view. And
Yeah.
our festival is in the library park right across the street. So that's helped us expand that to create more of a festival area. And have the building part of it as well. It wasn't really ever part of the festival. It was where we ran in and out to take care of things, but very few people went in. They came for the festival, they ate their cheese curds and left.
Yeah.
Bought a lot of art. So here now, having part of it, having kids activities being this kind of part of, having the art activities and food court and the art all around us, people are accessing the art center more as well. So it's kind of evolved, having live music and being able to have more of a festival and not just the visual arts. Artists, musicians love to be around visual art. They do. And readers, when we do spoken word stuff, when we do book readings, that kind of thing, we do a lot out in the community, especially the slams, to make it an evening out. But when we've done book reading, they love to perform or read in front of or in that space surrounded by visual art. So so that's kind of that perfect combination. And so a lot of people had a lot of ideas, but the core of it is wanting accessibility, wanting greater representation, being able to see more work from other artists as well, access to programming, providing. We didn't really have an education. We didn't have a room for education. So any education we did was offsite in somebody's studio, or we go to some community room at a bank or something like that. And it just wasn't the same. So for people to be able to come in and learn in this space is really exciting, especially with youth. They're able to go through the galleries and see work, and then go into the education room and create something based on that. And the access to a wide variety of work. Having the high school show and the middle school show, which are annual shows, we've been doing those for years, having them come in here and see their work in a gallery wall, on a gallery wall, next to all these other amazing adult artists is really, it's really exciting for them. And you can see how proud they are of their work and being in that space and seeing their peers work there as well. It's just, it helps. It's nothing better to hear a student say, I want to be an artist when I grow up.
It's so funny because when I went to school here for a little bit and I was one of those kids. Back in the Carnegie, I remember I had some of my middle school work hung up there before, you know, the Watermark moved and everything, and that's exactly what I felt.
Yeah,
It was the first time my art had ever been hung up on a wall, period.
right.
And walking in there and being able to see that it's possible.
Yeah.
And here I am, what, like 15 years later, and I'm still working with art,
Yeah.
and it did really inspire me.
Yeah.
And then when the building moved and there was so much more space, I thought, you know, being an artist was more realistic.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up in Bemidji, there was an art scene, but it wasn't how it is now.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like
think and again, I say build it and they will come.
Mhm.
It to me, the Watermark reflects what was here, the resource that was here. And that's why it became immediately was full and lively and you know, all sorts of ideas coming out of that and testing programming and seeing what works. It was because the people were here. There's a lot of artists, there's a lot of people who appreciate art. There's certainly, you know, when we were fundraising, educating some business, the business people that might not put two and two together, but you know, were used for recruiting purposes when someone for the university or another business, maybe Sanford or whatever, they're bringing people to town. A lot of times they bring them through the Watermark and some of our other, you know, to see this amazing arts community. Again, people are kind of blown away. There's the sculpture walk, there's murals, there's so much going on. The music scene, the writers, theater, all of that. There's a lot happening. So I always thought if anybody ever says they're bored when they live here, they're not looking
Yeah.
real hard. So it is something that I think is, to me, we wanted this space because the visual artists needed something like that, and the community needed something like that to access the art. And not to just live in a vacuum and have one exhibit from one local artist, and that's all we can show you. The other hard part was as soon as we had to switch over, I had less than a week to take down an exhibit, patch and paint the walls, hang the next exhibit to get ready for the next opening. So people would show up at the Carnegie and there was nothing really to look at. And then we opened the store, so at least we could send them into the retail gallery and they could look at art or shop there. But it was like, it wasn't what it can be. Any one of these galleries can be down in installation, but there's 3 others to take a look at. And again, that breadth and depth of work that's here. And a lot of the work we do, you know, we talked a lot about environmental work, and that's happening naturally because that's what the artists are bringing to the table right now. Those are the conversations they're having, and that's what's reflected in their work. And so that's been giving us these opportunities to work with different partners. And that's been kind of a more intentional thing I think that we've been doing, whether it's through health, mental health. We're working with collaborating with science to create, you know, STEAM programming, and that allows us to bring in artists and culture bearers to kind of have these conversations and create work with natural resources. It helps foster the stewardship, not only for the arts, but for our environment. And so those are the kinds of things that we're working on now but again, it's coming to us. People are thinking a little bit differently about who they collaborate with. And some of them have been ones that we've done outreach to. Some of them are coming to us. So it's just been really exciting to see that kind of thing happen. And the artists are rising to the occasion. So it's great.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
Was the pollinator garden outside an idea that came during building, or was that something that just came out of fruition? I'm intrigued by
Yeah, it came out of, I don't know if we thought of it as a pollinator garden right when everything was opening. So when we finally opened the big rain garden area on the north side, the large one that's kind of got a low, goes down and up. And it's when it rains, it fills up with water and then it drains down. And that particular one was full of large landscape rock. And it was funny because people were like, people are gonna fall in there. And it was really not ugly. I mean, it wasn't attractive. It was kind of ugly. And then there was the other space, and I don't know if we had thought about it. Might have just been grass there. I don't remember now. But at this time, and I'd have to look back to get my dates correct, we there was a grant that was available through the Beltrami Soil and Water Conservation. And we got a large grant to convert that all of the so we had two big scuppers that were just pushing holes into the ground because all the water on the rooftop had to come down and go into the south green space. So it was starting to sort of like, what are we going to do here? We need to do something here. And so between there was this, we were approached by Bemidji, the BBB, Bemidji Birds Butterflies Project. And we found this grant. And so in combination, and the grant was quite large, we were able to create that. So the person at the county designed, the levels. We talked about the levels of plants that had to be in there because we've got different kind of zones just in this one spot. Then we had the pollinator. So the small pollinator garden that's right outside the front door there on the north side, that is because of the Audubon support that we got. And the BBB support that we got. And then the other two, when we did that one, we just kind of did that. And it allowed us to get some sprinklers on that side and on both sides because they were going to be new. And we needed to, and so they had to be sprinkled. And so the design it was based on the amount of water coming off the rooftop over here. And over here, it was based on all the water in the parking lot comes down into that space as well. If it rains too much, too fast, it also comes off the street side. Drainage,
yeah.
So we're handling a lot of water. And like I've seen it fill up, but it always drains out. And so it's but it was kind of cool to be able to do it. There's a lot of people talking about it. There was things happening like that in other parts of the university and stuff. So, and this opportunity with the funding let us do this. And it was thousands and thousands of dollars worth of plants, and a lot of them were really tiny. So we worked with an area, two people that used to work in kind of landscape and had a garden center and stuff like that, and they helped us select the plants and where they were going to go, kind of design the garden. And we had a bunch of volunteers, including AmeriCorps students, and then we have a lot of help with sustainability students and their program when we do the spring weeding and stuff like that too. So those were developed with plants, and we've been watching them change and evolve. We've got to probably do some fixing there, but the programming and the connection with that. And so again, Jill can take students out into the garden and they can talk about the plants. And maybe they take the plants in and they do sketching. Maybe they make something, and so there's all these opportunities to work with those gardens, and people really enjoy them. They stop by and take a look at them.
They love them.
Yeah. So it kind of happened. I don't think we were completely we're like, what are we gonna do? And we hate this thing. I mean, I don't think in the big area, the big retention pond, we thought of that being anything like that. We didn't. And it's weird now because people kept saying how you need to put a fence there. So we were kind of talking about that, and we don't want it to look ugly, but what do we do? And then it's right along that sidewalk that we have to keep clean. So what do we do? And as we're having those conversations, this grant and things come along, and we are able to do that. And once we got the plants in there and they grew up, people don't think about falling into it. They never comment on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a fence. You could fall in there.
It works though, yeah.
But usually it and people walk up to it all the time, but when it was just rocks, they kind of like skirt away from it. Like,
yeah.
Kind of scary. So I don't know how exactly it happened, but I'm so glad it did. And it's just like, it was just this almost happy accident, but the funding was there. We are one of the stops too, when the county does their trip around town to show off some of their projects. We're one of the projects they stop at too.
That is so fun.
So that's really cool. Yeah.
Did you ever have any struggle with funding? And was there anything that, you had a challenge with the Watermark?
The project, a high percentage of it, at least 90%, maybe a little bit more for the project came from local resources,
Wow.
individuals, some grants, but there's not a lot of granting that goes to something like this. But foundation money, local foundation money, those were critical. And certainly there were some large donation, some nice not underwriting, but some very generous donations. But every one of those, from the 25 to the 250,000, is important to us.
Yeah.
And so out of that, we created some of the first, and this came out of it, we were fundraising and we're going around and they're like, well, are the artists, supporting this? No, they hate the fact that we're going to build a big art center.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, they are, but I know what they meant. Are they financially? So we looked at the first list, and almost all of the early money was artists or art patrons, people who maybe weren't artists, but went to supported the local symphony or the visual arts or whatever. And so we did this thing called the artist circle. So anyone who was an artist or a patron of the arts who gave a gift were listed on this circle. And so we kept track of that dollar amount so we could say yes. So it wasn't about, do they like the idea? It was about, they got skin in the game. And so it was important for us to say, yes, they're the first ones who started giving us money. And here we are right now. This is the dollar amount that's coming from the people that are, wanting to do this. And so that was important to do. And I'm not going to say it was easy, but it went well. It went really well. We ended up working with a professional consultant, which I think is key for doing this. Having someone, we actually did a dry run at it with another consultant, and what they do first is to see if this is a possibility. And you're thinking, oh, well, they're a consultant. They're going to say, yeah, you should do this. And she said, no, you shouldn't do this. You need to do your homework first.
Oh.
So this was kind of the end. This was 2011, 2012 when we were wrapping up our, it was right after we finished up, I think, our arts lab, or we were close to finishing that up, because I think we used some of that funding to hire her. And so what was nice was she wasn't from town, but she could go, and we gave her names of people to talk to. We don't know who said what. We never did find out who said what, but we were given that information. And so people will speak very candidly about what they think when they're talking to someone, and they don't have to worry about being known that told that. And that's where we found a really honest opinion. I don't really know what they do. We learned our name was confusing, all sorts of things. And that's how we went through the process of changing our name. And so that was really important. And she told us, if you want to do this, not now, you can't do, I wouldn't recommend doing it now. You need to do these things, and then I think you'll be ready to do it. And that's what we ended up doing. She was unavailable at the time, and we did finally go, hey, we're gonna, go try again. We hired a new consultant. It was a referral from a local foundation. Great job, really wonderful work. And again, it was the same thing. He kind of checked it out, and we did our homework, and it worked. So that was really reinforcing for all of us. I would say more funding issues are a problem now, but that's a nationwide problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we're experiencing. And there's a study that we've been involved in submitting information since 2019, and it's a 2019 to 2024 study from SMU Data Arts, and it's talking about 2024 being just awful. So when we looked last night, we looked at our financials, and we're looking at this 5-year span, and it's like, wow, 2020 looked good. Well, that's because there was all this PPP money, and we weren't doing programming, we weren't spending it. One of them was just a loan that we did. I thought we'd ask for it if we needed it, and we were approved, and they just dumped it into my check. Okay, that scares me. So we just set that off to the side. It was a safety net. We never tapped it when we returned it. And so, and that I think was federal money. So what we're seeing now, especially I'd say in the last year and a half, 2 years, is the changes in and the cuts that are happening on a national level, federal funding, state funding, those kinds of things. Those are have not impacted a program I have currently or grant I have, but I have gotten NEA funds in the past. But there's more people looking at a smaller pie of money. So we're all looking at, so there's people who wouldn't normally look at the money we're looking at that are looking at it. So there's maybe the same or less to go around, and there's more people looking at it. So that's been difficult. And sometimes we're at, and it's not a complaint, but sometimes we're at the whim of what they're looking at, the funders, the grantors. What's important to them, and we might not fall under that category. And so as things change, so it's always been important to have diversified funding because things change, and if it's a big thing that changes, you got to find a replacement for it. And so I feel like there's some interesting things that are on the horizon, but we are having to rethink, and at the same time we're rethinking how we serve our community. That is different. I think we've seen a huge shift in how people access the arts. And for visual arts, you got to go somewhere. For music, if it's live music, you got to go somewhere, and you got to go in and be there. People can support art at the Watermark by just showing up and looking at an exhibit. It doesn't cost them anything. We're free to come in. They can look around. They can come in as many times as they want. We often have free activities that happen, especially around the festival and other opportunities. Artist talks, openings, those kinds of things. Those are free, but we're finding that people aren't coming out that much. I think they're staying home more. We think there's a shift. There's an attitude change. I think there's some of it has nothing to do with the arts. It just has to do with what's happening in the world right now. And it's really hard to, we don't know exactly what, don't know if we'll know, but we can see a change. There's a change in people's behavior. And that's distressing to me, in that fewer people are taking the opportunity to look at art. And that's happening on a national level. Yeah. And that's what's frightening to me. And I think there's still people out there that have the financial capability, but I think people are hanging on to things a little tighter because of uncertainty.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just what's going on right now.
Right. And then locally, the solstice storm didn't help. And that, what a huge, and so people, we're located in, I think, the second poorest county in the state. We serve the top 3 poorest counties in our state. So our region, there's geography that's an issue for people accessing art. That's why we're looking at more outreach opportunities so we can serve more of our community, because it's a big area. But also, there's the geography of getting it, there's the time, there's the gas money, there is the opportunity. People are busy. If they have to travel a distance to do it, it's not always easy or convenient. So people are busy, young families are busy, that kind of thing too. There's a lot of pieces, but trying to figure out where we can meet people at where they're at is kind of what we're kind of talking about now. We're not doing that maybe enough. But then how do you find the funding to support that? And so partnerships are going to be key in that, community partnerships. And one of the things that's happened with the Meekinoong Gallery, and they've been doing with a Region 2 grant, they did the creative circles. And we've applied to do that again with some changes in that. And we found a lot of artists that we've never worked with before. That's been exciting to us. So as we go out into these communities, maybe we can connect with them on their home turf. And we're at the Boys and Girls Club with the Science Center, and we're doing something, and they could be our instructor. They can be the person that's walking kids through these, opportunities. And so that's a really great opportunity for us, and we're excited about that. That'll start next year, but we're working on developing that. But those resources are artists that have been coming here and doing the open beading circles. They've been doing classes, and we've been able to let people have access to that. And that's been the people who have been coming, and some are driving a couple of hours to get here. That's really, they're dedicated, they're really connecting with the artists, they're really making these friendships and things as well. And that's kind of that community, they're finding community, and
Yeah.
that is what people want.
It's so incredibly important out here too in Bemidji, where we are so spread out. And the Watermark gives a place for people to come together and connect. It's really nice.
Yeah. So that's what we've seen that's been really has been multicultural, intergenerational as well. It's been really great to see that kind of thing happening. And when we first started at the developing the Mikanon Gallery, prior to the building being built and everything, we started talking about things, and it's like, okay, we're going to do this. All these people are going to come and whatever. And we're finding that we are doing things in smaller bites, but it's more impactful too. And so we're constantly thinking about that. It'd be nice to say 200 people came to this, whatever. And that can happen depending on what it is. But sometimes those 12 people coming to that one thing and connecting with that one culture bearer, artist, naturalist, whatever, is just as exciting. We can't look at the numbers and say that wasn't enough. It sometimes is enough.
Yeah.
And that kind of trickles out.
It does.
Yeah. And so we've been making new connections. We have new constituents, we have new artists that we're working with, and that's incredibly exciting. And to see where that will take the programming.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
If you were to give advice to maybe a starting organization that looks up to the Watermark, what would you tell them?
I'm not sure. I know when I first started, I didn't have a background in this at all. So, and they say, what is it? The copying is the greatest compliment or whatever. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Certainly don't copy. I mean, we've had some issues where somebody's come in literally verbatim, took our programming, changed one word in the title, but that's our narrative written right there. You know, that's not cool. But like when we were looking at what other organizations are doing in your community, we were very intent on making sure that we knew what other organizations were doing for like youth education. We didn't want to copy that. And we didn't want them like on top of each other. We've tried to be very aware. Sometimes you just can't help it. And who knows who's doing it, and all of a sudden we come out with our same plans at the same time, kind of thing. But being very aware what's happening and making sure that we're filling a gap that's not happening. So we think it's cool that other people are doing kids programming. We think that's important. We can't be the only one serving that, just like we can't be the only one serving adults, but making sure that we're providing something that's different. And so people have other opportunities. So that's been important, and they should look at what's happening. Know that you can't be, especially if you're starting out, you can't be everything to everyone. So even when you do get that feedback, if one person says you need to be doing glass blowing, one person said that, and that'd be really cool. But what's the resources involved in doing that? And in fact, one of our early survey things that we were talking about when we were designing the studio, the education studio, was people are like, they were artists and community members. I'd like to do clay. And there's some places that were doing clay already. And they had kilns, and they had teachers, and they had wheels, and they had everything. And artist stood up, and he's a potter, and he said, pottery is a resource hog. It's great, but it is a lot. And it's not like you just go ahead and put that stuff in the closet and then we're going to paint today. It takes over the space. And so having someone, I mean, I knew that because I did ceramics a long time ago, but having someone else say that, someone who was actually a potter, saying this is not necessarily going to allow you to have very much variety in the programming. And we do have some ceramics, but it's hand building, it's for kids, and we have a kiln and it's elsewhere and stuff like that. So we try to do something like that. But that being said, we can't do it all. Don't try to do it all. And look at the feasibility of it and the number of people that might actually participate in that. And look to your resources, your local resources. It is nice to bring in artists and things from outside the area, but that's where it becomes expensive. And it's something you should do, and go to your regional arts councils and They are so helpful in helping you write grants. That was my first, was Region 2. Those were my first experiences. Region 2 and all these other grantors, they want to give you the money. They want you to be successful. It's not like, okay, go ahead and try it. They want you to, and they're always so supportive. Region 2 has always been very supportive of us if we have questions or anything. And so they will help you be successful, and that will allow you to do something. And also, start maybe small if it's new, see if it goes. It's kind of testing things, because you don't want to invest a lot of time in something that it was fun, but you're all exhausted and never want to do it again. But now you've committed to doing it 5 more times. Not probably a good idea. It's hard. You get excited and you want to do it all. So we're constantly trying to rein ourselves in too. Great idea, love it, but we probably don't have the capacity, to do it. And by capacity, it's staff time. We all have our passion projects. So I'll come in and let them do it. I'll be here so they can have the ed room for their whatever. So, but that's not sustainable either. So, and I get approached by organizations all the time that are looking to expand and wanting to know, and I find most are pretty generous with their, we don't have any secrets here, but I can tell you what we did. Might not work for you. And we also looked a lot. I'm at any kind of museum. I had volunteers. I was at the MIA this weekend. Look at their things. So looking at what others are doing. And it's always fun to see that stuff, even now, because what's happening beyond our bubble here too, and staying relevant. But when someone approaches me about an idea and they said, I saw this, then you have this example of, and you can and I've even called organizations and said, is this new for you? Have you done it for a long time? What is this? Does this work for you? And it's fine, fun to say, yeah, they might say, yeah, we did it once. It was so much work. We're never going to do that again, kind of thing. So people get excited about ideas, but you can't do it all, and kind of narrowing your focus if you can, and being, finding that community that wants to support what you're doing is really important too. So, yeah.